Hey everybody, it's Michelle. I am here to talk to you about our Patreon page. This is the page that you can go to help support our podcast with a monthly donation. When you commit to supporting us, you can get additional bonus content such as extra podcasts, our favorite playlists, our show notes, and eventually we would like to have merchandise to sell like t-shirts and baseball caps, and we would let you have first dibs at those. Of course, because we are coffee moms, we are offering membership levels that are as follows: the coffee membership, the cold brew membership, or the espresso membership. Now, no pressure whatsoever, but if you do love our podcast and you would like to help support it, you can go to patreon.com/messybunmamaspodcast. That is Patreon, patreon.com/messybunmamaspodcast. There you can choose a membership level that works for you. Melissa and I want to thank you in advance for your love and your support.
Messy Bun Mamas. I'm Joe. I'm John. I am Malcolm. Wow.
Hello.
Hey, everybody.
Welcome to episode 17.
Yay, number 17.
I'm Melissa.
And I'm Michelle.
And this is the Messy Bun Mamas podcast.
Yeah.
So today we are going to talk about boundaries with grandparents.
All right.
I was just going to do boundaries like overall, but it turned into like this rabbit hole of just ridiculousness.
Everyone and everything, right?
So I really want to talk about boundaries with grandparents. So before we get into that, why don't we go through our mama moments? Tell me yours.
So my mama moment is actually, it was not really a learning lesson for me, but it was a moment for me to realize something that I was taking too seriously. As I've mentioned the last couple of episodes, I have not unfortunately, because I enjoy playing video games, but playing with my 4-year-old is, ugh. So we've been playing Mario, and Joe has this ability to wander around in the same spot, like over and over and over. I mean, but if I get up and walk away, either he'll wander into a new section and I'll miss out on all the puzzle pieces that I need to help him get through something, or he'll immediately need me for some whatever reason. So I said to him at one point this week, I said, Joe, just give me the controller. I'm gonna get you through this. And he handed me the controller and he goes, I'm sorry, Mommy. I'm sorry that I was not doing the right thing. And now there's a little part of me that says that was a little bit of a manipulation control thing. But there was also the part of me that said, hold on, Michelle. You're maybe taking this game thing a little too seriously. And so I had to step back and I actually paused the game and I said, no, Joe, Mommy is sorry. I am getting way too uptight about this. I just want to help you solve all the puzzle pieces and get to the end of the game. And Mommy maybe gets a little too excited about getting where she needs to go versus just letting you play and have fun. And so it was just a good moment for me to step back and realize that I was taking our gameplay maybe out on him instead of just enjoying the moments of being with him. It really is agonizing though.
Playing video games with kids is kind of rough.
Yeah, it's It's agonizing. That's the only nice word I can think of.
Yeah, no, for sure. It definitely is rough.
So, but it was just, I'm glad that he's getting to a point where he can verbalize too in a way that makes me realize that maybe I'm being a little too much drama about something. So
Drama.
that was my mama. It's a little bit of a sad one, but I really like the eye-opening kind of moments as well. Just like, okay, it's just a game of Shaw.
Yeah. No, for sure.
And I can apply it to other things as well, like getting into the car. Like, what does it take? It have to take 15 minutes to get into the car. Just we walked from the house to the garage. Just get in the car.
Right.
And so I know I can be drama about that too. So
it's true. Same.
So that was my mama moment. How about your mama moment for the week?
So my mama moment, since we're doing a grandparent-ish episode, my mama moment does have to do with my mother-in-law.
Okay.
So my mother-in-law was recently diagnosed with breast cancer.
Mm-hmm.
And we haven't told the kids that, she's sick. It is stage 1. They caught it early. So,
good.
Fingers crossed. She is in her early 70s, which is a little concerning. But so John was on spring break this week. And he went over there to spend the night. And he went over there. He had so much fun. He was so excited to go. And then like Malcolm and Rayla got to go over there this week as well. And they just love spending time with their grandparents. And my mama moment this week was just, it's kind of sad. Yesterday I ran into a friend of mine and I told her, that my mother-in-law got diagnosed with breast cancer, and she's like, oh my gosh, like that's so sad. It for sure is sad. But it's one of those things where it's like, as sad as I am, and as much as I know that it will devastate my kids, I am a big believer of making sure your kids have their grandparents in their life.
Mm-hmm.
And as sad as it would be if something, tragic were to happen, I am comforted by the fact that my kids spent probably as much time as physically possible with their grandparents.
Mm-hmm.
I mean, even considering how old they are, because Mike was their youngest and he's 11 and a half years older than me, or 11 years old. He's 10 and a half years older than me, whatever. And he was their youngest, and their oldest was 12 years older than him.
Oh, wow.
So, I mean, they're, fairly older, and it's, all of my kids have good relationships with their grandparents. And that's my mom moment this week, is it was a little bit of mom pride just to know that if something was to happen, that they would still have their memories.
That's amazing.
Yeah.
I completely agree, because Dan's mom, my mother-in-law, has the beginning on stages of Alzheimer's. And so horrible. That is her biggest fear, worry, is that Joe won't remember her. And so we do spend time with her, and she plays with him. And I just wish that she would understand that this kid, even at 4.5, I mean, I want to go play with Grandma O. I want to go see Grandma O. So she has successfully implemented good memories with him.
Yeah.
So I agree. That is I love your mom.
Yeah.
Just, family's important.
It is so important. And I mean, I don't think that my husband and I are ever going to get divorced. I would like to say that I think that most people who get married don't think they're ever going to get divorced. No. But I think that even if something was to happen, like he was to die or whatever, we'll kill him off. We won't get divorced. We'll just kill him off. Because that's better. I still think that I would go out of my way for them to be in my kid's life, because I just think that grandparents are so important. And part of it, honestly, might just be because I didn't have very active grandparents in my life. My mom's mom died when I was 5, and she probably was the most active in our childhood. But I was the youngest when she died. I mean, I had 8-ish cousins. So they have a lot more memories of her. But my grandpa kind of like had a really hard time after she died. And then my dad's parents, they lived a couple hours away. So it was like we got time with them when we went out of our way to go and see them, but they weren't active members in our lives. And I just think that extended family is so important because it truly does take a village to raise a child. It, and I think that you're doing a disservice to your kids when part of their village is not their grandparents and their aunts and uncles and whatever. So,
because even if you don't agree with everything they do or say, which I'm sure will be part of,
we'll be talking about that today.
Part of the show is that I mean, you can't keep them away from everyone that you don't 100% agree with or share the same thoughts and opinions on. So,
well, yeah, that would just.
Right? I mean, and it's not a good way.
That's almost like raising them in a cult.
Right. I mean, and then you go back to what happens when they graduate and get out on
right.
their own. They're going to expect that everyone has to agree with them,
right? And who wants to raise that kid?
Right. God help me. But I do. I completely agree that no matter what your opinions are, you should always have grandparents for sure. And even like my brothers do not have big roles in Joe's life. All 3 of them. They just I have no idea. I mean, it's not that I haven't tried, but the one interaction my older brother had with him was just him yelling at him and telling him to stop crying. He was like a year and a half old. And because I wasn't listening to him, so he was stomping his feet and he kind of barked at him. And then my other brother will talk to him if we're talking on the phone or something, but like
they don't go out of their way.
They don't go out of their way to come here. And if I go down there, they don't go out of their way to come see him wherever we're congregating. So, and then my youngest brother, the same. It's just, he just stands there and stares at him awkwardly. So it's very important to me then that with Dan's 3 sisters that because they are closer and I have that advantage that to make sure that he knows Auntie Brenda, Auntie Chris, Auntie Sharon love him and love spending time with him. So. Yeah. I just stole your mama moment.
No, it's totally fine. I think it's important that, it's emphasized that family is super important. So let me tell you, when we found out that she got diagnosed with that her biopsy came back positive, it was just like kind of terrifying. Yeah. And like I said, she has stage 1. So it's
there's hope, but
there is hope. It's still scary. Age, yeah, it's still scary, but there is hope. And I mean, she's definitely like a strong woman. Like if anybody could get through it, she definitely could.
She's like the Sister Hook.
Yeah. Yeah.
Keeps on ticking.
Right. But yeah, if anybody listening just wants to have their babies hug their grandmas a little bit harder.
Yeah.
It was it's been a rough, and because like her appointments like actually started this week and it's actually going to become a little more like John spent the night over there and she's like, this might be like the last time he'll really be able to spend the night and for a while because she doesn't know how she's going to react to the radiation and she's got to get a couple surgeries to get some lymph nodes out or whatever and make sure it didn't spread and
you don't recover as quickly
when you're that age
as you're older. So
yeah, and she's it just but like I said, I mean my kids are 7, 3 and 1 and they love their grandparents.
That's amazing.
So I mean, if anything tragic was to happen, I just...
Well, I know
I'm
that
so
they love your
glad.
mom too.
Yeah, no, everybody except Rayla. Rayla doesn't like her Nana. I don't know why. It's been like her whole life. Whenever she sees her, she cries. But it's like she'll talk to her on like video chat.
But if it's in person, huh?
Oh no! I mean, you've seen it.
Yeah.
It's like a joke now, I think, and Rayla like knows that it's a joke.
Sure, that one night was like, no,
Yeah.
I want mom.
Yeah.
Yeah, you keep your space.
That's how it is all of the time. So yeah. So we will get into our topic of grandparent boundaries after this short break. Hi, this is Melissa from the Messy Bun Mamas podcast, and I want to talk to you today about Anchor. This app, let me be real honest, is basically lifesaver. I got the random idea, on a Tuesday that I wanted to try and hit up my mom friends and try and get a podcast going, and Anchor has made it so smooth. I downloaded this app, at 7 a.m. on a Saturday, got my plug and play microphone, and we were able to go in, record. We had a high quality recording, and it turned out great. And I didn't have to take any of the tutorials or anything like that. So if you haven't heard about Anchor, it's a safe and easy way to make a podcast. It's also free. There's creation tools that allow you to record and edit your podcast right from your phone or your computer. And Anchor will distribute your podcast for you so it can be heard on Spotify, Apple Podcasts, and so many more platforms. You can make money from your podcast with no minimum listenership, which is amazing. So I don't have to feel like a failure if nobody listens to me talk. It's everything you need to make a podcast all in one place. For example, we just recorded our first episode, and I was already able to go in and remove something really stupid that I said. So download the free Anchor app or go to anchor.fm to get started. All right, welcome back. So we are going to talk about boundaries with grandparents. So I actually did way more research than I would like to admit to.
Versus I didn't do any at all.
But the thing is like, I'm not going to read a ton of the research that I did because I feel like it's really important to tell like my story about boundaries with grandparents, because I think that sometimes when you read research on things, it kind of gives things in a very narrowed scope.
It doesn't take account for different personalities and different people.
Yeah. So when John was a baby, he was at quote unquote daycare at my in-laws' house.
Okay.
So up until he went to 4K, he was there every day, Monday through Friday, from like 9 or 11 in the morning until like 4 or 5 o'clock at night. There were lots of times that he spent the night over there 1 to 2 nights a week. They were very close to him. Malcolm was the same. He was over there a lot mostly until like COVID hit. And to say that my in-laws did not follow my style of parenting would put it lightly.
Okay.
For example, I was, a first-time mom. I didn't like the kids going to sleep with blankets. It made me really nervous.
Okay.
My mother-in-law kind of was like,
whatever.
Like, whatever. So it's kind of like a don't ask, don't tell situation. I, didn't want them to... I wanted them to try one food at a time. I wanted them to try baby food. I wanted them to, their eating habits to be a little bit more stringent just in case they were allergic to anything. My mother-in-law, meh.
She's like, oh, my kids lived.
We're eating a cookie. We're going to give them a cookie. I wanted to make sure that there were just things that I was, that I guess could fall under quote unquote safety. My mother-in-law definitely thought they fell under quote unquote first time mom. so I think, safety is a little bit of a stretch, I feel like, because what's safe for me and what's safe for you and what's safe for her are probably all different things.
But then again, the safety rules kind of follow the same thing that you were saying about the research, is that every child is different.
So I had, like, this would be a constant worry of mine where I'm just like, they don't listen to what I want. They don't listen to what I need. Like, and I would have friends that would say, well, don't let him watch him then.
Right.
And a lot of the research that you read will say things like that. And I think it's really easy for people who are on the outside, or like professionals, I guess, to say like, well, just don't let them watch him then.
Right.
Take them out of that situation if they're not respecting your boundaries, blah, blah, blah. It's definitely a fair mentality to have. And if that's the mentality that you have, not necessarily you, but like others, like, I'm not saying that there's anything wrong with thinking that way. But as far as I went with it was, he's in an environment where he's loved, where he's cared for, and where he's safe.
Right.
So really, a lot of the other things are just my parental preferences versus their parental preferences. And what is more important, that they have relationships with their grandparents, or that they're not feeding him bananas on,
when I want them
to be giving him bananas.
Right.
Like, John went through this phase where whenever he ate a pear, he would get diarrhea. So I would get super mad, but John loved pears.
Right.
So I was super mad when they gave him pears. I'm just like, that it gives him diarrhea. Like, why would, and they're like, but he loves them. And I would get so mad, and I would just have people say like, stop bringing him over there. And I'm just like, over pears though?
Right.
Like,
right. My brain sees both sides of this. Like, it really infuriates me, but also it's not into the relationship type thing.
Exactly. And it's just like, I can't tell you how many times I said to people, he's safe, he's loved, he's being cared for. I know he's in an environment where like these people would die before they harm him.
Right.
I know them. There's no chance of him being like sexually abused or whatever. And I'm not saying that daycare is like, that stuff happens every single day. Like, that's for sure not what I'm saying. There's way more great daycares out there than bad daycares. But the thing is like, whenever you leave your kid with a stranger, there's always that like fear. Even if it's in the back of your head, there's just always that fear. So there were times when people would get like this, and I'm just like, okay, so you just want me to bring them to a daycare? That's what you want me to do? And they're like, well, no. And I'm like, okay, well,
because I could pull up all types of news reports showing you that I don't know what I'm sending him to.
Yeah. So it's like, okay, well, this is safe. He's loved. He's cared for. And you know what I mean?
It irritates me that I have to deal with him while he has diarrhea, but I guess.
But it's true. It's one of those things where, yes, I don't want them to be giving him pears because it causes diarrhea. They know it causes diarrhea. It's going to make my night annoying because, he's going to have diarrhea all night. But again, like, it's not the end of the world.
Right.
So, another thing is, I mean, there's that joke that people say about, grandparents giving their grandkids sugar and whatever. Well, my mom takes that like pretty much quite literally. I mean, the kids go to her house, she lets them make pancakes. These pancakes have blueberries, chocolate chips, sprinkles, tons of syrup. Okay, kids are ready. You can come pick them up.
We squirt the chocolate all around.
So, I've had people say, like, well, if you don't like what she's feeding them, like, why don't you just tell her, like, if she's going to continue to do that, she's not allowed to have them. And I'm just like, I mean, because they're making chocolate chip and sprinkle pancakes.
Right.
Like, I feel, and this is what I'm not making this up. Most of the research says you need to have specific boundaries with grandparents, and you need follow through, and you need consequences if they don't agree with your boundaries. And the reason I wanted to talk about this was because I think it's important to discuss at what point are our boundaries as parents less important than the relationships that our kids have with their grandparents.
Yeah.
So, Michelle, what are your thoughts?
So here are my thoughts. I mean, definitely I agree with you. Like, some of that stuff is super irritating, but because it doesn't impact really his physical well-being or his mental well-being or uh, social well-being. While it irritates me and I may just want to vent it out, that's not something that I really make a big deal about. In fact, I'm probably more relaxed than my husband and his family. Like, he still wants to cut up hot dogs for Joe, and I'm like, no, he's 4 and he has teeth. But the CDC says you should be cutting them up till like they're 6 or 7, and I'm like, no, that's ridiculous.
That for sure is ridiculous.
And so but the things that are really more important to me, and I do believe in boundaries, not just for the sake of my son, but for the sake of myself as well. And I've actually had to draw some real clear boundaries with my families. But the things that I draw the boundaries with would be more of the how do you talk to him and how do you treat him type boundaries.
So more like the snapping that you said.
Yeah.
Yeah.
So like there was one day, and because I'm a yeller, I'm a trying to recover yeller, trying to have a sane voice when I'm very angry. Joe says, "Why are you so angry?" I'm like, "Joe, I just sighed." He's like, "Oh, you're frustrated." Yes, I want you to listen to me right now, and I'm really trying not to yell. And so, like the one instance that I can think of is when we were at my in-laws and my sister-in-law was there with her dog. Well, Joe was being rough with him. And so she asked him to stop. He did not. I was just sitting there watching the situation, and he did not. So she took his arm and she pulled him away and said, and she got down to his face and she says, "I told you to stop." Of course, drama, starts crying and everything. And so she came to me very worried later. She's like, I really didn't hurt him. I didn't like squeeze his arm or anything. I'm like, well, you're a better person than I am, because so to me, that's not a problem. I want him to respect what other people say. Like, even when you were at our house the other day, no, Melissa said this to you as well. You listen to Melissa. But what I don't like is I have someone in one of our families that, like, if he were to cry, they would do the "you're just a spoiled brat." Wait, time out.
You all didn't hear me, like, my head jump back.
No. Let's dial this back. Okay? If you don't like him whining, you can talk to him in a regular voice and explain to him why you don't like it. And if he can, he's a toddler.
They're going to whine.
They're going to cry. And at this point, you can reason with him a little more. I know when he was younger, it's harder. But insulting them and making them feel little.
And calling them names.
does not sit well with me. Maybe that's how you parented, and maybe that's why I have some of the problems I have right now. Um, but so to me, that is my boundary.
Yeah.
Is how are you affecting them physically and emotionally?
Yep.
And I have very clear lines on that. It's just, nope. You're going to spend time with him. You're going to talk to him respectfully.
Yeah.
You want him to talk to you respectfully. You talk to him respectfully. I can even tell you that even when I'm upset with him or irritated, and even if I am yelling, I don't do the name calling. It's just, I don't belittle him. It's not that you're stupid or you're a brat or just, it's just, you're not listening to mom. And that's because when I raise my voice, all of a sudden the ears start working.
Right.
We're both enabling each other.
Right.
He enables me to yell because that's when he starts listening. That's my excuse. I'm sure there's a lot of people therapists and counselors out there that would disagree, but it's all Joe's fault that I yell. But yes, I do believe in boundaries, but I believe the boundaries should be when it comes to, like, are they being physically harmed or are they being mentally harmed, or emotionally?
Yeah, and I think that would fall under my, like, they're safe, they're loved, they're being cared for.
She put a blanket on him.
She also went and checked on him every 5 milliseconds, or probably, like, laid in the crib with him because she loves those kids so much.
I think this comes to that thing where we go overboard again, though, right? Where before it was, if our parents said it, we just did it because you just did what your parents told you to do.
Yeah.
Or you didn't respond to them at all, versus, no, you have to have cold stone hard boundaries and you just cut anybody off. Don't get me wrong. I will cut somebody off.
Yeah.
I will definitely cut somebody out of my life if I feel that they are emotionally or physically harming. I mean, nobody's really physically harmed me, but if I feel like it's not good for my well-being or the well-being of my family, I will cut you off. But I'm not going to cut you off for
giving him pears.
Petty things.
Yeah. And it is definitely one of those hard things that, because I feel like when you allow other grown-ups to be actively involved in your kids' lives, you are going to open yourself up to other people's opinions and parenting styles. Right, wrong, or indifferent. Right. I mean, it kind of is what it is. And to be honest, I don't agree with most of the research out there. I really just don't. I feel like we are kind of unfair to grandparents.
Yes.
Because I feel like it's my way or the highway, buddy.
We've actually drawn this line of my way or no way. You can be in my life only if you do it my way.
Yeah. And the thing is like, why? Like, do you want your kids to treat you that way when you're old? Like, listen, you're
beat him down if he does.
But that's how, like, everybody says we should. And the thing is I mean, when my husband listens to this, he's for sure gonna be like, that's because you don't have healthy boundaries with your family. True. I don't. Like, we are all engulfed in each other. We are in each other's lives. We are ride or die. Like, we are there for each other. I can understand how some people might say, like, oh, it's kind of unhealthy. Like, you guys are a little bit too entwined with each other. I don't. If Mike and I are fighting, I do not call my mother and have her work it out. Okay? We figure it out on our own,
right.
But I like talking to my mom every day. I enjoy that. I understand how some people might be like, oh my gosh, you're in your 30s and you want to talk to your mom every day. Yeah. I mean, I just enjoy it. Like, I I like talking to my brother. I like having my nieces over, you know. I like having that bond with my family. I like, you know, I like my kids knowing their grandparents and spending the night at their house. And, you know, if something exciting happens in their life, they want to call their grandparents, they want to call their godparents, they want to call their aunts or uncles. That to me is a bad boundary based on the research that I found, because it's just like you don't have any separation between your extended family and your immediate family and blah 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 blah. And the thing is like I struggle a lot with that. I for sure do not have healthy boundaries with my family, and I'm just kind of like, I mean, if healthy boundaries is treating them like an other rather than part of my familial unit, then like I'm fine with having unhealthy boundaries with grandparents. I will say that if I have to choose between my husband or my mom or his mom, my husband wins every time, 100% of the time. And that is also my expectation with my husband, you know, as far as if he has to choose between me or his mom or my mom, he'll choose me. But I mean, there are times that like something's going on with the kids and I'll call my mom or I'll call his mom and be like, "Hey, this is going on. Do you have a suggestion? What should I do? Do you want to talk to them? Like John was naughty in school today. I need you to talk to him because he
needs him, right.
I'm done.
Somebody
like,
else
yeah,
has got to do this.
Exactly. And it's just like, again, it definitely would be perceived by most people as like, that's a bad, you don't have healthy boundaries with your family.
I actually consider that a good, healthy boundary, though, just because you can say to your parents or whoever it is, so you can say to your parents, I cannot deal with this right now. I need somebody else to step in and have a conversation with him because I may not handle it appropriately right now. Excuse me. And usually that's when I ask someone to intervene, is because I know that I'm going to make it way bigger than what it needs to be. And so I don't know. I guess I disagree too, because I think that's a healthy boundary. It's calling on your village, right?
Yeah. But I feel like so much of the research out there is like in La La Land, it takes a village to raise a child. But in actuality, like, you need to have healthy boundaries, and how dare anybody give you their opinion and advice and blah, 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 blah. I was just really disappointed in the research I found.
But see, I think that goes with today's kind of culture of
don't respect anybody's opinions.
I'm going to give you my opinion, but I'm not going to listen to your opinion. Don't you dare share your opinion with me. I mean, I have actually a couple of family members that will post stuff on Facebook, and like if I comment on it, they're like, are you trolling me? No. I just don't think it was appropriate that you shared that. So you shared your opinion, I'm sharing mine.
Yeah.
And so I think that that's part of it, is that we're currently in a culture of, I get to share my opinion, but don't you dare share your opinion with me.
Because I don't want to hear it.
Right. Because the only thing that matters is what my opinion is. It's a very entitled kind of selfish thing. I mean, it goes back to entitlement, right? Everything's about me. And so I guess that's where I think where some of that research stands. I do think you need to have boundaries with your parents and the grandparents, and say, you can talk to me like this, you can't talk to me like that. But when it comes to just other things, like my mom came to visit last year sometime, and she says, I'm going to make macaroni and cheese. And I'm like, okay. Well, the next thing I know, she has garlic, salt, and pepper out next to the pan. And I mean, I could have made a big deal about it, but I just quietly picked them up and put them back. And she's like, Well, I was going to add those to the mac and cheese. I'm like, you're making this for a 3-year-old. I mean, if there's no reason to make a big deal about it, but if she had insisted on putting it on there, I would have been like, all right, I'll make him his own mac and cheese. It's not a you do it my way or get out of my house
Right.
type of situation.
It definitely, and I think it's because I've seen so many like issues with parents and grandparents not being allowed to be in their kids' or grandkids' lives. That it puts things in a really like deep perspective for me. Like, for example, I have a brother who we don't see, we don't talk to. He's decided that he doesn't like us, which is fine because I mean, he came back around at some point and I'm just like, you know what? You've kind of made it very clear that we're give or take whenever you feel like it, and I'm not about that life.
Right.
So but it breaks my heart because my son and my brother's son were 11 months apart.
Mm-hmm.
So when my brother up and decided that we weren't good enough for him, John asked for his cousin for a year and a half. And my kid was like 3 at the time.
Right.
And for maybe he was 3.5. Anyways, 3.5, 3.5. I don't know. For a year and a half, he asked for him. Finally, he forgot about him.
Mm-hmm.
Like, I mean, we would be in the dollar store a year after this kid disappeared, and he would be like, hey, so I want to get 3 coloring books. I want to get one for me, one for Etta, and one for Lee Buddy.
Mm-hmm.
And it's like,
you're not going to see him.
You're not going to see him. So when they came back around, I mean, it became a whole thing where I was just like, I don't have any interest of you being in my life because I'm not going to do that to my kid. And Mike and I were both like very insistent about that. Like, no, like it's not good emotionally for them.
Right. Well, that to me is a healthy boundary. It's you're not going to come in and use us for whatever you need at the moment and then get up and leave, or just come in and be with us because you feel good in the moment, and the moment we say something you don't like,
you're just going to dip. Leave. Exactly.
I'm going to protect my family and myself. So
yeah. And like, to me, that is a good reason to be like, yeah, no, you're not going to be around.
Right.
But like, because they give him pears, like, I could not imagine telling any of the grandparents that are involved in my kid's life, like, you can't see them because you put chocolate chips in their pancakes.
Right. Or like if Joe had stayed with his grandparents when he was still drinking from a bottle, because she's like, because I was saying he drinks. I'm like, I'm pumping and we're supplementing with formula. The kid just eats and eats and eats, because I was telling her that the doctor was saying to not feed him solid foods until he was older. And I'm like, I got to put something in this kid's stomach. He's 4 and 5 months old. We're going to go broke. And she's like, well, I would just give the kids water. And we're like, you're not supposed to do that. But say I had left him with her and she gave him water, I mean, it's not something that I would have been like, you're never seeing him again.
Exactly. It's just like, I don't understand how that is even a thing that we even begin to have enter our minds. I have Belinda, and her grandparents didn't see her for years because of a difference of opinion, and it devastated them.
Mm-hmm.
And I just couldn't imagine. I couldn't imagine, like, I mean, what you're talking about, like somebody teasing or talking down to your kid, like, to me, like, I wouldn't even be fine with my spouse doing that.
Right.
So to me, like, that is definitely an exception, I feel like, to what we were talking about. Right. Like, it's almost kind of abusive, but like, I don't want to use that word because I feel like that word is almost overused.
Yes, it is. But it's along that same line of with like your brother of I'm protecting my family. I'm protecting his emotional well-being.
Yes.
And so nope, there's the line. If you can't talk to him
respectfully like a
then,
human,
right, then you're not going to talk to him.
Yeah.
And that's your choice. You can come over, but be prepared for me to step in.
Yeah. But to tell grandparents, like, you are only allowed to be a seer, not a doer, and you have to follow my every command and whatever. Like, how do we think that our parents are going to react to that? Like, truthfully, like, we really think that our parents should just be like, okay, thank you so much for allowing me the privilege to be in my grandkid's life. Right, well, I'm going to walk on eggshells around you now.
It kind of leads to the, almost says, I can do this job way better than you.
And I mean,
it's not wrong. But with everything, we've evolved as a people, right? So, I mean, there are some things, and even like medical science has evolved and shown us what is best and what's not good and blah, blah, blah. But at the same time, like if my mom had given Joe honey before which I don't know, some of that stuff is questionable to me, but I wouldn't have freaked out. And like, well, we know he's not allergic to honey.
Exactly. Like
I mean, if they would have given him something like that and he had some type of a reaction, I know they would have been like 911.
Right? It's not like they would have sat there and been like, oh, it looks like he's got full body hives. You probably should take him to the ER. His throat looks like it's swelling up.
He's gasping a little, but he's still been breathing, so.
Well, yeah, exactly. It's just like, I mean, these people love our kids as much as we do. So as much as it's like, yeah, we should have firm and healthy boundaries with our parents for their grandparents. I found a list that was like 60 things long of, it was written to grandparents of like things you shouldn't do with your grandkids that will make your kids angry. One was buying too many toys, giving them too much sugar. Like, this article was written, it was like basically in a retirement like magazine or whatever, like AARP or something like that. I don't know, whatever. And it's just like, if you do these things, you're not going to be allowed to see your grandkids. And I'm just like, I don't want my quote unquote boundaries to ever get in the way of the love that my parents would show my kids.
Yes.
And why would you want your parent or your in-laws to be like terrified every second that they're not going to be able to see their grandkids? Right. That sounds horrible.
I was gonna say, that list sounds like, I don't know, but I can tell you this, that if my parents were to bring Joe a gift every time, or my in-laws were to give Joe a gift every time they saw him, you know, that I'm not going to say anything. I mean, like my mom is very good about balancing her gifts. Like sometimes she'll get him trucks or cars, and then sometimes she gets him books. As an Easter gift, she mailed him books. And so I'm not going to be like, no, Mom. But on the same aspect too, I don't, maybe it's just because my family tends to be a little more conscious about diabetes and things like that. Like if we're at one of their houses or they're at my house, they don't just throw candy at Joe. They just, can he have some or blah, blah, blah. But if I were to take them to their house and they fed him candy all day, and I mean, my boundary would probably be like when I walk in the door and I see him, I'm like, yeah, he's staying the night. I'm not taking that home with me. So you created it. You get to keep it. Kind of you made your bed. So, I mean, if I had a boundary, that's what it would be.
No, for sure. And like, I mean, some of the things on this list is like, don't hold a crying baby if your children don't want you to. Be firm about sleep time and bedtime routine if they're at your house. Let your friends hold your grandkids. Like, I'm just like, request more grandkids. I can understand how that could be offensive, but like, I just don't like the guise of having good boundaries under that this whole mentality is around. Like, I couldn't even find an article that was just like, good job, grandparents. Like, I know, like, it's kind of hard to watch your kids be parents or whatever. And it's just like, I'm sure my mom's going to listen to this episode and be like, oh, so you think I'm amazing, huh? You think I'm fantastic. I can do whatever I want with the grandkids. And it's like, that's for sure not what I'm saying. But at the same, that's not what I'm saying, Mom. But at the same time, like, I just don't want the.
You're not going to deprive her of
No.
the grandkids or your grandkids of her because you're like, I really wish she wouldn't make chocolate chip pancakes and put chocolate syrup on them with whipped cream.
Right? Like, that just seems like a really silly thing to throw a fit about. Like, this is what we are getting upset about right now.
I mean, I kind of want to go to breakfast at your mom's right now.
She lets them flip them and make them all on their own.
Oh, man, that's amazing.
But I don't know. And I know, like, part of it's just because, like, I'm in this mentality right now of like, oh, hug the grandparents a little bit closer right now because everything going on with my mother-in-law. But I think as parents, sometimes we need to let our parents be grandparents. And we're not always going to agree with them. But I mean, I'm not saying that every grandparent has the best intention, but I would say, like, I'm sure most of them do. So
Right.
just like, I mean, let them be grandparents.
I mean, they're not throwing them out into the middle of a busy highway, so.
Right? Throwing them off a roof and saying, like, fly. So I don't know. So
I think there are too many rules, but I think that about for parents as well. Like when you were talking about the safety guidelines and things like that, they take a broad spectrum thing and narrow it down to every child, and it's
it doesn't work that way.
It could be a whole nother conversation just about that. So I think that that's where some of that comes from, is the parents are given so many rules and regulations and fear,
Right.
fear. And the parents are like, okay, mom, dad, look, if you don't do it this way,
they're going to die.
They're going to die. And I mean, sure, I don't control all the sugar Joe eats because just enjoy life.
Right?
You've got one life to live. But I mean, definitely at about 7:30 p.m., I'm like, no, we're going to cut it off right here, everybody, because I like him to sleep.
Right? So true.
So, yeah, I think some of the expectations all around are too high.
Yeah, for sure. Absolutely. So yeah, that's about all I had. If you have differing opinions, like, I'm always more than open to hearing what they are. I might not nicely disagree with you.
As we heard in
the last episode. But I'll try.
I'll diplomatically reply to you. I mean, it doesn't, just because I diplomatically reply to you doesn't mean I agree with you. It just means I'm trying to be nice in my response.
So yeah, let's get into our recommendations.
All right. So my recommendation for today is, I actually enjoy books that are not really devotionals, but are more like, they're kind of like the one a day devotionals, but it's more of a inspiration or motivation type
Okay.
thing. And this is the very first one that I read. It's 100 Days to Brave for by Annie F. Downs. And this one is actually kind of both. It's devotions and it's motivation. But it is just so good. Like, um, I'm just going to open up randomly and read here. So, day number 8 is You Aren't a Mistake. She says, I like it when TV ads remind us to believe in ourselves and be confident we can do anything we want to do. You've seen the ones I'm talking about. An NBC star sits awkwardly on the arm of a couch and says into the camera, You know those dreams you have? You can do them. Believe in yourself. And then the ding, 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 ding jingle plays as a star crosses the screen. The more you know, the more you know. Here's something I know. I shouldn't believe in me, at least not in the way those commercials say I should. I've been me long enough to know that I'm not someone to be believed in. I mess up. I hurt people's feelings. I care too much about some things and not enough about other things. I get lost. I am not perfect, and I don't want to pour my hope or trust into someone as faulty as me. So while I'm grateful for what the TV ads are saying, I don't think it is totally true. I believe in the me God made and in the me God can make. I believe he made me on purpose and didn't make any mistakes when it came to my creation. That makes me feel brave. And that is the place where I find my courage, knowing that while I am making mistakes, I am not a mistake. That is where you can find your courage too. Maybe your parents never got married. Maybe you were born without the ability to see or hear, or maybe you're missing a limb. Whatever it is, you aren't a mistake. God doesn't make mistakes. I know my tendencies and fears, and I also know my gifts and hopes. It's where those meet that I often find God cheering for me to make the brave choice. We can be confident in how God made us because his word says we are fearfully and wonderfully made. But we can't do this life or be brave on our own. And then, like, at the end of each of these, she always has like an actionable piece. So like
Yeah.
for this one, she says remind someone you love, like a friend, partner, child, or spouse, that God doesn't make mistakes. And so I just love to open up a book and to just be encouraged. I mean, there's tons of devotionals out there, and I definitely encourage reading your Bible every day. I'm not perfect at that, God help me. But I also think that we sometimes just need to hear something nice. I mean, sure, I we do hear the you have to believe in yourself and da 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 da. And she's not saying that you can't. She's saying believe in the person that God is making you to be.
Yeah.
And so I don't know, it was a really good one, and she really talks about in this particular one because it's about being brave, about reaching for what God made you to be and what he intends for you to do, basically finding your purpose and
Mhm.
following it. So it was just really good, and I really liked the actionable steps because then I was able to use it. And people were like, oh, you're so sweet to think of me in this way.
Yeah. No, for sure. So why don't you remind me, what's the name of the book and who's it by?
It is 100 Days to Brave by Annie F. Downs. She's kind of a popular author in like the Christian communities.
Yeah. All right. Well, my recommendation is a lot less academic. So this week, we actually went over to Michelle's house, and we did a thing that like really warmed my heart a little bit. So she had paint on plates, and then the kids were able to just like paint a poster board or whatever.
Mm-hmm.
And my son Malcolm, here's the thing. Malcolm kind of plays to the beat of his own drum.
Mm-hmm.
And he is not always the best at following directions. And he also sometimes just wants to do his own thing, and he's not going to apologize for it, and I don't want him to. And he was mixing all the paints together on his plate, and he was painting with like his whole body.
He was so all in.
And I was just like, oh my gosh, like he's got paint all over himself. And there's no picture on here. It's just a bunch of smush. And like, what is going on right now? He's not following the activity or whatever. And like I said, my knee-jerk reaction was just to be like, oh my gosh, like, can you just do what you're supposed to be doing? Like, what are you even painting right now? Like, you're ruining your clothes. But the thing is it was washable paint. It comes off.
I have the same struggle. Like, I know it's washable, but it's like, oh, I'm gonna have to change it.
But at the same time, like, he was having fun. Like, I mean, does he need to paint a pretty picture? So I guess my recommendation this week is let your kids be themselves.
Be themselves.
And you know what? They're not always gonna do things the way that you want them to do it. You can definitely tell that my kids are not used to be sitting down and doing activities with instructions, because she had like these shapes that the kids had to like paint in, and mine were just like all over the place. And then Joe's got these nice decorative dots all over it. I'm just like,
he knows to not upset his mommy with painting outside the lines. I'm just kidding. I don't like beat him or anything.
But no, it's just, I really had to like pull myself back to just be like, Malcolm is having fun. He's not doing anything wrong, and I kind of just need to let him be Malcolm.
Do you know what I really enjoyed about that moment was that you could see the personality of all three of them in their three different pieces of art. Like, Joe was still continuing. He carried over one project into the other. So he was like, I'm going to use this whole poster board to use the pom-poms to dip in the paint and make another egg. And John was like, I've got this whole piece of
scenery.
I'm like, seriously, can I bring you home with me? And then Malcolm, as you said, like head to foot, like body painting. If we had just stripped him down, that kid would have been happy to roll
around in it. He would have.
And so I actually enjoyed the moment, because I have talked about where I can be very like, this is going to be a huge mess, I can't do this type of thing. But I was actually in the headspace of just, let's let them be. That day. And it turned out to be such a wonderful moment just to watch their artistic selves. And then he had even more fun cleaning up. So.
Yeah. But it's true. It was one of those times where I was just like, you know what? I need to let him be Malcolm. And I think that that's my recommendation this week is like, sometimes just take a step back and let them be them, because you know what? It's washable paint.
It's washable paint, and you don't want all of your kids to be cookie cutter people.
Right.
You don't want the person who's going to do all flower. You don't want a whole family of who's going to make all the flowers. You know, you want that kid to do abstract painting, and you want the other kid that will use textured stuff, and you want the other one who has the whole scenery layout of whatever. Like,
and then you want Malcolm who's painting with zombie blood.
I love him so much. I really do. So yeah, I love your recommendation. And it can be a struggle, mamas. It really can. But sometimes, just if it's washable, just sit back, put on your own clothes that you don't care about, and just let loose and have fun.
Right. I mean, I will say that Malcolm's picture at the end, it was like, well, this isn't going in a frame. It literally just looks like smeared poop all over the place. Like, woohoo. But yeah, he was really excited about it. So
did he like show Mike did you guys bring them in?
Yeah, no, we have him in here. He didn't care about showing Mike at all. John did. John was like really excited to show him. But that's their personalities, where Malcolm's just like, I did an activity, like I don't need to show you, like whatever. Like Malcolm, he'll get sheets
He's
from like
in the moment.
Yep, he'll get sheets from Sunday school. He doesn't care one bit about them. John wants to bind them all into a book of his 4K memories that he can look back on when he's 10.
That we have the wrong kids. John and I would live so much better together.
But he is like, that's just, it's their differing personalities. When Malcolm's just like
3-ring binder,
yeah,
and the paper hole puncher.
Yep, his colored staples, and he can have those little tags that you can put on there.
Tabs that you can take off and put on.
Yep, that's John.
Paper clips and binder clips and he needs to come spend the I feel like we'd have a lot to talk about.
He'll be playing with Joe, and you'll be like, "No, this is my friend. Right. He's here for me."
Yeah, Joe's like, "Aren't we gonna go play Mario?" I'm like, "No, he's my friend now. Go play with your dad."
So yeah, hopefully you guys enjoyed this week's episode where we talked about grandparent boundaries. Yeah. As always, you can follow us on social media at Messy Bun Mamas Podcast. That's on Instagram, LinkedIn, Pinterest, Facebook, YouTube. On Twitter, we are bun_podcast. You can email us at messybunmamaspodcast@gmail.com, and you can visit our website at www.messybunmamaspodcast.com. Thank you for listening.
Have a great week.
I am Messy Palm Heads.
This is Messy Bun Mama's Podcast.
This is Messy Poop.
Messy buns, you silly.